To each one of those who comes into the public meals, the eldest man says, as he points to the doors, "Through these no word goes out." A thing that met with special approval among them was their so-called black broth, so much so that the older men did not require a bit of meat, but gave up all of it to the young men. It is said that Dionysus, the despot of Sicily, for the sake of this bought a slave who had been a Spartan cook, and ordered him to prepare the broth for him, sparing no expense. But when the king tasted it, he spat it out in disgust, whereupon the cook had said, "Your Majesty, it is necessary to have exercised in the Spartan manner, and to have bathed in the Eurotas, in order to relish this broth." The Spartans, after drinking in moderation at their public meals, go away without a torch. In fact, they are not permitted to walk with a light either on this route or on any other, so that they may become accustomed to traveling in darkness at night confidently and fearlessly. They learn to read and write for purely practical reasons, but all other forms of education they banned from the country, books and treatises being included in this quite as much as men. All of their education was directed toward prompt obedience to authority, stout endurance of hardship, and victory or death in battle. They always went without a shirt, receiving one garment for the entire year, and with unwashed bodies, refraining almost completely from bathing and rubbing down. The young men slept together, according to division and company, upon pallets which they themselves brought together by breaking off by hand, without any implement, the tops of the reeds which grew on the banks of the Eurotas. In the winter they put beneath their pallets and intermingled with them the plant called lycophon, since the material is reputed to possess some warming qualities. Affectionate regard for boys of good character was permissible, but embracing them was held to be disgraceful, on the ground that the affection was for the body and not for the mind. Any man whom complaint was made of any disgraceful embracing was deprived of all civic rights for life. It was the custom that the younger men should be questioned by the elder as to where they were going and for what, and also that the elder should rebuke the one who did not answer or tried to contrive plausible reasons. And the elder who did not rebuke a younger who did wrong in his presence was liable to the same reprimand as the wrongdoer, and anyone who showed resentment if he was reprimanded was in great opprobrium. If anyone was detected in wrongdoing, he had to go round and round a certain altar in the city, chanting lines composed as a reprehension of himself, and this was nothing else than his own self-rebuking himself. Moreover, the young men were required not only to respect their fathers and to be obedient to them, but to have regard for all the older men, to make room for them on the streets, to give up their seats to them, and to keep quiet in their presence. As the result of this custom, each man had authority, not as in other states over his own children, slaves, and property, but also over his neighbors, in like manner as over his own, to the end that the people should, as much as possible, have all things in common, and should take thought for them as for their own. When a boy was punished by anybody, if he told his father, it was a disgrace for his father, upon hearing this, not to give him another beating, for they had confidence in one another, as the result of their ancestral discipline, that no one had ordered their children to do anything disgraceful. The boys steal whatever they can for their food, learning to make their raids adroitly upon people who are asleep or are careless in watching. The penalty for getting caught is a beating and no food, for the dinner allowed to them is meager, so through coping with want by their own initiative, they may be compelled to be daring and unscrupulous. This was the object of their starvation diet, It was meager both for the reasons given and purposely that the youth should never become accustomed to being sated, but being able to go without food, for in this way, the Spartans thought, the youth would be more serviceable in war if they were able to carry on without food, and they would be more self-controlled and more frugal if they lived a very considerable time at small expense, and to put up with the plainest diet, so as to be able to consume anything that came to hand, they thought made the youth's bodies more healthy, owing to the scanty food, and they believed that this practice caused the bodies, repressed in any impulse towards thickness and breadth, to grow tall, and also to make them handsome. For a spare and lean condition, they felt served to produce suppleness, while an overfed condition, because of too much weight, was against it.